Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast here on this glorious Thursday. Special thank you to all of you guys who are watching this show live. For those of you who may not know, I got a number of requests from people asking for me to try doing this live. So for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing the John Campea podcast live at 9 a.m. in the morning Pacific Standard Time. That's noon on the East Coast. So there's already a whole bunch of you guys in the chat board. Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate you making me a part of your day. I'm very humbled by that. So couple things. Went and saw Dark Tower last night. Well, okay, look, I'll say this about the Dark Tower. And please, if you haven't yet, check out my review. My review is on my YouTube channel. So go and give that a click and watch it there. But one of the things I say in the review, and I'll say it here is, I was really excited about this movie. I think everybody was. But then I was really skeptical about the movie because they weren't showing it to press until the day before the movie releases. That's a clear sign that the studio doesn't have a lot of faith in the film. I'll say this. It was nowhere near as good as I had hoped it would be. It wasn't quite as bad as I feared it would be. I don't know. It's not a good movie. I still got something out of it. Like, I still think there was enough there. But man, this movie should have been about 25 minutes longer. I mean, at 88 minutes, they just skipped through too much stuff. But anyway, for my full, spiel on the whole movie, go and check out my review that's there on my YouTube channel. Okay. So, another thing, couple things dropped this morning. The brand new Death Wish trailer dropped. I also have my review for that up on my channel here, so go check it out here. It's two different trailers. The first half and the second half. I love one half of the trailer. I hate the other half of the trailer. Go check out my review there. And of course, the other news that dropped in the last number of hours was that Chiwetel Ejiofor is in talks to be the voice of Scar. And for those of you who've been watching me for any period of time, you know Chiwetel Ejiofor, I think, is one of the best actors on the planet. I love this dude. So I'm super excited about that. That works out. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, once I posted that video about Chiwetel Ejiofor, some people asked me, it's like, wait a minute, I thought Hugh Jackman signed up for it. No, that was never true. That was a fake story that some tiny, literally this website I had never even heard of that had like 5 readers or something like that. This tiny website I'd never heard of said, Hugh Jackman has been cast. And then Screen Rant ran with that as a story, which was really weird. That it wasn't like, I don't know. Anyway, so no, Hugh Jackman was never cast. That was a fake story. Chiwetel Ejiofor, according to the Wrap, is in talks to play the role. I think it would be great if you want my full thoughts on that. Again, my video is up on my YouTube channel. All right. So here's how today's going to roll, guys. I've picked out 7 questions today. Why 7? Because I accidentally picked one too many, but I didn't want to throw one out. So I picked 7 questions today instead of the normal 6. You can see them in the comments, or not in the comment section. You can see the 7 questions in the description video below. So you can check that out. I'm going to go through these 7 questions, and then what I'm going to do is after I'm done the 7 questions, I'm going to take a few minutes and go to the live chat board and try to pick out some questions that you guys have in the chat board, and we will go from there. All right. With all of that out of the way, let's dive into it with question number 1. And question number 1 today comes to us from OddBoyKahn, who writes, you may have already answered this before, but have you heard anything about the $6 Million Man movie? And is Mark Wahlberg still attached? Yeah, for those of you who don't know, there has been an effort for a number of years now to get a $6 Million Man film put together, or as they have updated it, the $6 Billion Man. There have been a number of efforts. Back in like 2010, 2011, they were putting together a $6 Billion Man movie with Jim Carrey. And it was going to be a big comedy. And they were moving on this Jim Carrey thing. And then news about this Jim Carrey $6 Billion Man movie kind of disappeared. Then a couple of years later, I believe it was 2014, news got released that Mark Wahlberg had signed up to now star in a non-comedy, although I'm sure there would be some comedy, but more of a serious take on the $6 Billion Man. For those of you who don't know anything about the $6 Million Man, the $6 Million Man was a story, I think the show was in the 60s or 70s, something like that, where this astronaut had a horrible accident, he was going to die, and they basically turned him into a cyborg. I mean, they'd give him robotic legs, a robotic arm, a robotic eye, all that kind of stuff. So he's kind of superpowered in many ways. Anyway, Obviously, doing that today would not cost $6 million, hence the $6 billion tag. So anyway, they announced in 2014 that Mark Wahlberg was going to star in it. Not only was Mark Wahlberg going to star in it, but Peter Berg, who was his director in Patriots Day and his director in, he's been his director in like 3 films already. So anyway, Peter Berg was going to direct. And the movie had a release date for 2016. Well, obviously 2016 has come and gone, and we still haven't seen a movie. As far as I know, the project has been completely scrapped. I heard that the $6 billion movie was just completely thrown out. They're not going to do it at all. If you check Peter Berg's upcoming projects list, it's not listed. If you check Mark Wahlberg's upcoming projects list, it's not on the list at all. So as far as I know, the $6 billion man movie is dead. Whether or not somebody else comes along and tries to pick up the property and do something with it in the future, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But as far as I know, the movie is completely dead. If you guys have heard anything else or have any opinions on that, jump into the comment section and leave your thoughts. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Maurice Martin, who writes, "Hi, John. Greetings from Indonesia. I'm a huge fan since the AMC Days. Thank you very much. I just want to know if Fox makes a Doctor Doom movie without Fantastic Four, or Fantastic Four is not in the title, does that reset their clock for the Marvel deal? I don't know about the business deal. If yes, it sounds like a cheat." Okay, so here's what Maurice is talking about. Back at Comic-Con, the showrunner for the TV show Legion, which is really good if you haven't checked it out. Just get by I thought the first episode sucked, but after that the show really picked up and it's really quite good. Anyway, the showrunner for Legion announced that he is working on developing a Doctor Doom movie for Fox, okay? Now, when Maurice asks in his question, does that reset the clock? What he's talking about is that obviously Fantastic Four is a Marvel comic book title. But the reason Fox has the rights to him is they purchased the rights to him, and they have a constantly cycling clock. And that clock resets every time they go into production on a new Fantastic Four movie. So Fox has the rights to Fantastic Four, and I believe the clock is every 4 or 5 years, something like that. So if Fox goes like 5 years, maybe shorter, maybe longer, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but if Fox goes 5 years without being in production on a Fantastic Four movie, then the rights to the Fantastic Four lapse back to Marvel and Marvel get the rights back. But as long as Fox goes into production within that clock, within that time period, if they go into production on a new Fantastic Four movie, the clock resets and they get another 4 or 5 years. So anyway, at Comic-Con, they announce he's developing and he's working on a Doctor Doom movie. Now, it's important to keep in mind that he didn't say it's official, it's greenlit, we have a release date, blah, blah, blah. No, he's just developing it, and then we'll see if Fox greenlights it. So, if they do a Doctor Doom movie, does that reset the clock even though it's not Fantastic Four in the title? And I talked to a couple of reps at Comic-Con, and the best answer I could get was yes. That even though it's not Fantastic Four, it's Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom is a part of that Fantastic Four package. So if they go into production, as far as I understand, if they go into production on a Doctor Doom movie, the entire Fantastic Four family, the clock on that gets reset. And it's not a cheat. It's not really a cheat. I mean, that's part of the deal. If, Silver Surfer and Galactus and Doctor Doom and Reed Richards and Johnny Storm and Sue Storm and the Thing, if they were all part of the same package, and the deal was, hey, if you go into production on a movie, then it resets the clock, and they go into production on one of those characters that's in the package, it's not really a cheat. So we will see. Look, I always say I don't want characters to go back to Marvel. I like Spider-Man being at Sony because we get more Spider-Man movies and more diversity. I like X-Men being at Fox because otherwise we never would have gotten Logan, we never would have gotten Deadpool, we never would have gotten X-Men Days of Future Past. I like the X-Men being at Fox. And I like, for the most part, well, I did like Fantastic Four being at Fox, but even I, a defender of other studios keeping the Marvel properties, even I gotta say, look, Fox, you're doing some great stuff with your X-Men, with Logan, with Deadpool. You're doing some great stuff. But for whatever reason, you have not found the formula for Fantastic Four. You've taken 3 swings of the bat and you've struck out. Let it go. Don't waste any more of your time and money. Just focus your attention, Fox, on these properties you're doing good stuff with. Let Fantastic Four go back to Marvel and see if Marvel wants to do anything with it. But apparently, Fox is not giving up on Fantastic Four. They want to keep going. And so, yeah, if they go ahead with this Doctor Doom movie, it resets the clock and it'll be at least another number of years before we see it go back over to Marvel. All right, guys, leave your thoughts in the comments section, and let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Kyle Carragher, who writes, "Hey, John, huge fan of the show. Thank you very much. My question is, with all these Disney animated movies being turned into live action, what would your thoughts be on a live action Lilo and Stitch? I love the original and think it's probably the most underrated Disney animated movie, and I think making a live action one would be very successful at the box office." Well, thanks a lot for the question, Kyle. Yeah, you know what? Lilo and Stitch is a cute little film, and it has kind of been forgotten. I mean, really, like, at least with me and my friends, when I have conversations about Disney films and animated films and talk about all the classics, I gotta admit, Lilo and Stitch never comes up. I like it. And when you bring it up, I'll go, oh yeah, I really liked Lilo and Stitch, but I never think about the film. I never think about Lilo and Stitch. On that level, no, I disagree with you, Kyle. I don't think it would be successful. It feels to me like Disney is going into the live action stuff on the things that really resonate with nostalgia for a lot of people. Like they're doing The Lion King. They did Cinderella. They're doing Aladdin. The one that surprised me that they're doing is Mulan. But they have a great idea. Mulan, as an underlying story, has a great story. There's some really special things you could do with Mulan. And if they start to run out of properties, then maybe a Lilo Stitch comes back on the board. But I got to tell you, in the circles that I travel in, and that's just my circles, your circles may be totally different, I never hear anybody mention Lilo and Stitch. So I don't know, like you guys in the Lilo and Stitch. If you guys in the chat board, do you guys often talk about Lilo and Stitch amongst your friends? Does that come up? Do you think a live action movie could be successful? I'll be honest with you, I have my doubts that it would be. Not that I wouldn't like to see it, but I just don't know that it has that same nostalgic factor that a lot of their other properties have. So I would probably be surprised if we saw a Lilo and Stitch movie anytime soon. All right, thanks a lot for the question. Let's move on to the next one. And the next question today comes to us from Chris Kokorin, who writes, "Hi there, John. Lorenzo de Bonaventura, one of the producers of the Transformers films, has recently stated the Transformers writers' room was only for Transformers 5. What do you think about these comments? Do you think that the writers' room was wasted thanks to a lack of forward thinking?" Yeah, bullshit. Bullshit. That writer's room was just for Transformers 5, okay? That's bullshit. Because we remember the comments, we remember the press releases when that writer's room was formed. The writer's room was not just formed for Transformers 5. What they are doing now is damage control, because it's become public knowledge that they completely threw away the writer's room. The writer's room has been disbanded. They got rid of the people who were in there and as a part of it. And that's all gone now. And now they're coming out and saying, oh, no, it was only for Transformers 5 in the first place. Bullshit. It was. It was not just for Transformers 5. You didn't get 17 people together in a room, some of the biggest names in writing in Hollywood and Oscar winners and all that kind of stuff, just to come up with, and this is what they said, we were only trying to figure out how to tie it into the King Arthur legend. Really? You had to get 17 people in a room for 5 days or 10 days or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever to come up with, how do we tie Transformers to King Arthur? Bullshit. Complete BS. And I have spoken to somebody who was in that writer's room, and I know that that is not true. But here's the confusing thing to me. I don't understand why they're lying about this. I don't understand the point. Like, I said they're doing damage control, but really, what damage? Okay, you tried a writer's room, didn't work out the way you hoped, so you moved on from it. Big deal. That's not a big scandal. That's not a big... That's not like a big controversy. You tried something, didn't work for you. Oh well, and you're moving on to something else. I just don't get why they would lie about this. Why would they say this bull? I just don't get it. There is no point to it, because really, it's not that bad of a thing. Just say, yeah, we tried something, didn't work, no big deal, we're moving on. But now they're coming out and doing some, we were just trying to get the King Arthur connection. Oh, it was just for Transformers time. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. And it just befuddles me about why they would even say this. I just have no idea why they would even go there with this. But, oh well, what are you going to do? All right, let's move on to the next question. Wow, we're just zipping along here today. All right, the next question, I believe, was this one question for? Yeah, that was a question. The next question today comes to us from, okay, I'm going to try my best here. Campea Brian, who writes, "Hello, John. I'm a huge fan since the AMC days." Thank you again. My question is, how people are panicking about Warner Brothers and DC not announcing any date for Man of Steel 2. I think the reason is they haven't announced it is because Superman is officially dead in the DCEU, at least until Justice League comes out. What do you think? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I thought it was curious, just like everybody else, that there was no Man of Steel 2 announced or any word about it, and they didn't even mention it at Comic-Con or anything like that. Yeah, that's curious. But I've been reading on some forums, and like literally some people are losing their minds over there being no announcement for Man of Steel 2. And I mean, I don't understand the panic. I don't get the panic. Look, and I don't understand the panic for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't get the panic because we are clearly getting a lot of Superman. I mean, we had Superman was a key figure in Batman vs. Superman. He's obviously going to be a key figure in Justice League. He's obviously going to be a key figure in Justice League 2. He's probably going to show up in other DCU movies. So on that level, like, we're going to get Superman. So just because he's not in a movie called Man of Steel 2, and look, I am the biggest fan of Man of Steel in the world. Nobody's a bigger fan of Man of Steel than me, and I mean that literally. I think I love it more than Zack Snyder does. But even I know the movie doesn't have to be called Man of Steel 2 to get a movie that we love and appreciate. So I don't understand the level. I disagree with you, though, that the reason they're not announcing Man of Steel 2 is because he's officially dead. Well, everybody knows he's alive. I mean, they showed that he was alive at the end of Batman vs. Superman because, you know, that it ends with them zooming in on his coffin, and then all of a sudden, the pebbles on his coffin start to shake just like when he took off and flew for the first time. They revealed that he was still alive in Batman vs. Superman. We know Henry Cavill's in the movie. We know he's returning. We watched that Justice League trailer from Comic-Con, and they mentioned Superman all throughout that trailer. We know Superman's coming back. So I don't think the reason they're not announcing a Man of Steel 2 is because they're trying to not spoil the fact that Kal-El shows up in Justice League. We all know Superman showing up in Justice League. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. I do think we're going to get a Man of Steel 2. And I do think that they're not wanting to announce it because I think there are things, not that we need to know that Superman is showing up in Justice League because we already know that, but I think there are circumstances surrounding Superman that we don't yet know about that are probably going to be key things about a Man of Steel 2. Again, no insider information here. I'm just guessing. I'm just speculating here. But I think there are going to be circumstances surrounding Superman and him being still alive and all that kind of stuff that will play into Superman 2, and until Justice League comes out and reveals those circumstances about Superman, they're probably not ready to announce a Superman 2. That's my theory on it. Or again, it could just be a situation like the Incredible Hulk. Like in the MCU, they use Hulk all over the place, but they don't have to have a movie with his name on it for him to have a serious big presence in the MCU. And I think the same thing about Superman and Man of Steel. Superman can have maybe even be the biggest presence in all of the DC universe, and yet not necessarily have a movie called Man of Steel 2, although I do think we're getting a Man of Steel 2. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. What do you guys think? Jump into the comments section and let me know your thoughts. But yeah, I don't think, even if they do another Superman movie, I actually don't think it'll be called Man of Steel 2. I think it'll either just be called Superman, or it'll be called Superman Last Son of Krypton, or Superman's Big Adventure. I'm big on Big Adventure lately. So I think we're going to get it. I just think we're not going to hear anything about it until after Justice League comes out. All right, thanks a lot for the question. And the next question today comes to us from, let's see, Amarit Gruwal, who writes, Love your show. Been watching you since the AMC days. I have a question regarding movie screenings. You mentioned the studio thinks or knows The Dark Tower isn't a great movie, so they decided not to screen it for the press until a day before its release. My question is, if the studio knows the movie is not going to be well received, why not work on fixing its issues and delay the release date, or why screen it at all? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. Yeah, so I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the show. Dark Tower. The movie hides, the studio hides the movie from the critics until the day before the movie comes out. That is a big red flag that the studio doesn't believe in the movie. So the question, and I saw it, and I didn't hate it. I didn't hate Dark Tower. I think it has its redeeming qualities, and I think if you've been looking forward to it, you should probably go check it out. But just be prepared that while I think you're going to get some enjoyment out of it, I think ultimately you're going to walk out of the theater disappointed. Even if you don't hate it, and you might hate it, but you might not. I didn't hate it, but clearly the studio didn't believe in it. The studio did not have a lot of faith in it. So the question is, why not just go back and try to fix the issues? Well, they did. They actually did some test screenings of a 2.5-hour cut of the film, like back in 2016, in late 2016. And so they went in, they put up some money, went in, did some reshoots, and did a massive cut down and went from 2.5 hours to under an hour and a half. So they cut like an hour out of the film, which I think was a mistake. Anyway, so they spent millions of more dollars to go back and try to fix it and blah, 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 blah. But here's the problem. The Dark Tower was never going to be an $800 million movie. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows The Dark Tower was not going to be an $800 million movie. It probably wasn't even ever going to be a $600 million movie. I think its ceiling was probably a $400 or $500 million movie. So you gotta, as a studio, ask yourself, at what point have we put enough money into this movie? And at what point, if we keep putting money into this movie, are we just screwing ourselves? Because they did go back and they still weren't satisfied. And if they still thought there were issues, why not go back again and spend another $20 million? Well, because at some point you've spent too much money. At some point, you just got to cut your losses. At some point, you just got to say, we have spent as much money on this movie as we're going to spend. It's time to cut our losses and just move on. Don't show it to the critics until the day before. Get as much money as we can on opening weekend until the bad word of mouth gets out. And then let's just move on to the next movie. And at some point, that's just what you got to do. So then you ask the question, well, why even screen it for the critics at all? Well, The House, the Will Ferrell, Amy Poehler movie, tried that and didn't screen it for the critics at all. And I'm telling you, if they had screened that for the critics and even got bad word of mouth out 2 or 3 days early, at least people would have been talking about the movie, because that movie bombed. Like, I can't remember the exact number, but I will pull it up right now. Give me a second here. I'm going to look for The House box office and see how much The House made on opening weekend. The House on opening weekend made $8 million. $8 million. Now, you can't tell me that they wouldn't have made more than 8 if at least some people were talking about the movie. But because they didn't screen it for critics, nobody spoke about it. None of the outlets talked about it. None of the critics talked about the movie. It was silence. And because it was silence, you had a movie, a frickin' Will Ferrell comedy with Amy Poehler, opening weekend made under $10 million, $8 million. There's no way you can tell me that that movie wouldn't have at least made $4 or $5 or $6 more million, even if it was negative, if people had at least been talking about it before the movie came out. But they didn't screen it for anybody, so nobody talked about it. What do they expect? So they got dead silence. And I think what Sony knows, and learned a lesson from that, seeing that, I think Sony knows that, like, look, people have to at least be talking about our movie, at least talking about it, even if it's negative. So let's find that nice little gray area where we're not giving them any advance notice, but there's at least a little bit of a window where people can talk about it, so the public is generally aware that our movie is opening this weekend, and then roll the dice and cross our fingers and hope it works out. So yeah, I think not screening it for the critics is something that the House tried, and I think it blew up in their faces. I think it backfired on them. So yeah, guys, look, I'm telling you, I still believe this, even though I didn't hate Dark Tower. Rule of thumb is this: if a studio does not show a movie to critics more than 1 or 2 days before a movie comes out, you should probably avoid that movie. Because if the studio doesn't believe in their film, why should you believe in the film? That's just my thing. So I think, look, if studios want to fight that problem, make fucking better movies, which I think some studios really are getting the message and trying to do. And you know what? Okay, they tried The Dark Tower and it didn't work. Whatever. Move on to the next movie and we'll see where it goes from there. All right. I believe we're now on to the last email question of the day before we go over to the chat board. And the last email question today comes to us from Dustin Mason, who writes, "Hey, John, do you think Will Poulter stands a chance for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars? Do you have any predictions for that category?" Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Will Poulter is currently starring in the new film Detroit, film directed by Catherine Bigelow. The movie is wonderful, and everybody in it is real good. John Boyega's really good. Anthony Mackie's real good. The whole cast is really good. But the one that made the biggest impression on me was an actor I don't normally pay much attention to. And I thought he was miscast, was Will Poulter. I thought Will Poulter was completely miscast for this movie before seeing it. I'm like, come on. As a rough, brutal, dirty cop, Will Poulter, he looks like a 14-year-old kid that gets bullied for his lunch money. Give me a break. This is stupid. This is terrible casting. He's amazing in it. He is flat out amazing in it. This dude has chops. And yes, if the Oscars were announced tomorrow, Will Poulter's name has to be on the Best Supporting Actor nominee list. Has to be. And now it's tough now I've got to say, if the Oscars were tomorrow, I can't say definitively right now, oh yeah, when the Oscars come in February, Will Poulter's name has to be on it, because I haven't seen all the other movies that are going to come out for the rest of the year. Maybe enough names come out that push Will Poulter's name off the list. But if the Oscars are tomorrow, there are two automatics I think have to be on there. One is Will Poulter for Detroit for Best Supporting Actor. The other for Best Supporting Actor is Patrick Stewart for Logan. I think if the Oscars are tomorrow, those two names have to be automatic locks. So that's just my thought on it. All right, guys, that'll do it for the email questions that I'm taking today. I'm now going to go over to the live chat. You guys can start firing in some questions on the live chat. I'm going to go over there and start pulling out some questions right now. There's about a 20-second delay, so I'll give you guys a second to throw those in there. Be patient with me because it's going to be awkward. You might get some awkward pauses here on camera because I'm going to be trying to read questions at the same time and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's see. Macro469 writes, "John, I really like Creed, but now that Stallone is rumored to write and direct the sequel, Bringing Back Drago, I'm afraid Creed 2 is going to be Rocky 5 bad. Thoughts?" Don't be nervous about that at all. Look, Stallone, nobody knows this character better than Stallone does. And don't think while Creed is Ryan Coogler's movie, you got to know nothing happened without Sylvester Stallone giving the green light and okaying everything as they went. Stallone is a very good director, and Stallone is an Academy Award nominator, might even be an Academy Award winning writer. So, and nobody knows, the character of Rocky or Creed or this whole universe better than Stallone does. I wouldn't be worried. I still don't think, Stallone will direct it, but I do have a feeling he's going to write it. And like I said, he's an Academy Award either nominated or an Academy Award winning writer. So I have no problem with that. I wouldn't be afraid of that at all. Okay, let's see here. Next one comes, I lost it. Andrew Garfield, I doubt it's the real Andrew. Who's the best actor in Hollywood right now? Well, that's easy. It's Daniel Day-Lewis. And until he retires, after his upcoming movie in December, he's the best actor in Hollywood. After him, I think it's either Ralph Fiennes or Russell Crowe. And then the next tier down from that, then you got like your Leonardo DiCaprio, Joaquin Phoenix, Denzel Washington, Chiwetel Ejiofor, guys like that. Then the next tier down from that, you're getting to level of guys. But I think the best actor still, until he retires, it's Daniel Day-Lewis. Let's see here. By the way, a few people, please stop asking me, what comic book character would you like to see turned into a movie next? Please. I've answered that question like a million times, and I still get that question like a million times every day. So I'm not going to answer that one anymore. Shirian Benavi is writing, Justice League opening weekend. Tough to say. I mean, we have to get closer to the movie. At this point, I'm going to say 175 million. I'll say 175. This is my opening guess, but I reserve the right to change my guess until we get to like a week before the movie comes out. Right now, I'm going to put a target on 175 million opening weekend. I think it's going to have a great opening weekend. Thomas Hughes writes, what is my favorite Tarantino movie? Ooh, I'll probably go Django Unchained. I'm going to go Django Unchained as my favorite, probably then followed by Inglourious Bastards, which is funny because I hated Inglourious Bastards the first time I saw it. I honestly don't know if I was in a bad mood that day, but I hated Inglourious Bastards the first time I saw it. Then I watched it again like 6 months later because a girl I was on a date with wanted to go back to my place and watch it. I'm like, all right, fine, we'll watch it. And I watched it and I loved it. So there you go. So my second favorite is probably Inglourious Bastards. My third is probably Pulp Fiction. And yeah, that would be my top three. All right, let's see. What else do we got here? Like you, Kabir Pankaj writes, like you, I don't like Marvel or DC fanboys, but you're a sports fan and root for a team. Isn't what they are basically doing? Well, here's the difference. Being a sports fan, so this is the big thing I always bring up about being sports fans and what like the DC and Marvel fanboy war is missing. There's two key things. Most Marvel fanboys and most DC fanboys are intelligent people who understand that being a DC fanboy means I love DC. Most Marvel the vast majority of Marvel fanboys are intelligent people who know me being a Marvel fanboy means I love the Marvel properties. But then what you have is some of these backward thinking cousin fucking, morons who think I'm a DC fan. That means I have to hate Marvel. And then you get some of these backwards thinking cousin fucking moron Marvel fans who think I am a Marvel fan. That means I must hate DC. For me to be a Marvel fan means I have to hate anything DC. And you guys infect the gene pool. You should really just not breed. Please don't breed. That you can be a DC fan. The vast majority of DC fans know this. You can be a DC fan and still appreciate the good things Marvel do. But you prefer DC. That's fine. Most intelligent Marvel fans understand I can love my Marvel thing, but I can still appreciate the things that DC does well. But I prefer Marvel. That's fine. It's these backwards thinking idiots that think I am defining myself not by what I love. I am defining myself by what I hate. I'm a DCer. That means anything Marvel does is suck. I'm a Marvel fan. That means anything DC does sucks. You're just a moron at that point. Now, if you legitimately don't like anything DC has done, but you're open to, hey, if they put something out that I like, then I'm going to say I like it. That's fine. You're a DC fan and you just don't happen to like anything Marvel's done. But hey, if they put out Thor Ragnarok comes out, I'm looking forward to seeing it and let's see if it's good. That's great too. The other thing that drives me crazy about the Marvel and DC fanboys as opposed to sports fans, here's where sports fans are more intelligent than some of these Marvel and DC fanboys. Sports fans understand that I love my sports team, but that doesn't mean I can't acknowledge what's wrong with my favorite sports team. Like if you're in New York, people live and die by the New York Giants, man. They live and die by the New York Giants, and they are diehard Giants fans. But those New York Giants fans, you listen to Call-In Sports Talk Radio, nobody will complain about the Giants more than the New York Giants fans. Why? Because they love the Giants and they want good things for the Giants, so they don't stick their head in the sand and pretend nothing's wrong like Marvel and DC fanboys do. They won't deny problems with their team. They'll be the ones to put a spotlight on the problems with their team because they want the team to improve it and to build it up. Marvel and DC fanboys? No. You say anything negative, like I got a bunch of backward cousin fucking morons who say I'm a DC hater because I will bring up the things about DC and Warner Brothers, what they've done, that I don't think they've done right and that drive me crazy and I think are wrong. But I do so because I love the DC properties and I want them to do well. Much like a sports fan will point at the things they don't like about their team because they love their team. I think if you're a real fan of something, you will point out, embrace, and highlight the weaknesses of the things you love because you're secure enough to do so. I think it shows a lack of true love. If you are not willing to point out the things about the objects of your fandom that you think are weak, if you're not willing to point out the things that need improvement, then you don't really love that property. You're just a bandwagon fan. You are just a bandwagon fan. If you are not willing and you're not secure enough in your love for a property that you can point out and identify and put a spotlight on the things that need to improve, then you're not a real fan. I'm sorry, you're not. So I think, but look, Marvel and DC fandom, when it comes to the movies, is still young compared to sports. You're talking about sports leagues have been around 100 years, okay? Marvel and DC big movie property things is still a young thing. And therefore, I think the fandom is going to mature and grow and we'll develop that. And I think we'll get to a point where, everybody's just comic book movie fans. Or if you're a Marvel fan, you don't necessarily have to hate DC. And if you're a DC fan, you don't necessarily have to hate Marvel. And if you're a real fan of something, then you're willing to talk about and point out the weaknesses in that thing you love because you want it to get better and improve. And sticking your head in the sand ain't going to improve it. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for me and my ranting on that for now. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Hey, listen, guys, do me a favor. If you like my videos, make sure you click on the like button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's a big thing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're sharing my videos around. Comment on the videos. Engage in good, intelligent conversation and a way to build each other up and edify one another. And that will do it for me, guys. I also want to remind you that I love using this one app called Share the Meal. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this. Some people, by the way, are under the mistaken impression that I'm sponsored by Share the Meal. I am not. I am not sponsored by Share the Meal. They don't pay me anything. I just know that I love using the app. And I've always thought that we as a movie fan community can gather together and do good things for the world. And I know you and I, all of us want to make the world a better place for somebody. Share the Meal is the easiest, simplest, most inexpensive way I've found that you can actually practically change the world for somebody. You hit the Share the Meal button and you've just donated $3.50 that feeds a kid for a week. You leave tips bigger than $3.50 when you go to the restaurant. And that's all you got to do. $3.50, just hit the button. It feeds a kid for a week and you've just made the world a better place for somebody. I think we as a movie fan community can have a big impact. So I always like to highlight that. It's on Android and on iOS. Go check it out. I think you'll get addicted to it. Anyway, that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me for this installment of the John Campea podcast. I appreciate it very much. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.